She fed a hungry child at a charity gala and got fired on the spot. The next morning, 3 black SUVs pulled up to her diner. Turns out, the boy's father is the city's most dangerous mafia boss. And his son won't eat unless she's there. Clara's feet were killing her. She'd been working the buffet line at the Grandview Hotel for 4 hours straight, smiling at wealthy donors who barely looked at her while piling caviar onto plates that cost more than her monthly rent. The annual Children's Hope Charity Gala was the biggest event of the season in Chicago, and Clara needed this catering job to survive. "More shrimp, please," a woman in a diamond necklace demanded, not bothering with eye contact. "Of course, ma'am." Clara's voice was mechanical now, professional autopilot. That's when she saw him. A boy, maybe 8 years old, sat alone at table 7. While everyone else mingled and laughed, he stared at his empty plate with an expression Clara recognized too well, the look of someone trying to be invisible. Metal leg braces gleamed under the chandelier lights as he shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Clara glanced around. Where were his parents? A woman in scrubs, a nurse, clearly, stood 10 feet away, scrolling through her phone. The boy looked at her, then at the buffet, then back down at his plate. "Excuse me," Clara approached the nurse. "That little boy at table 7, does he need?" "He's fine." The nurse didn't look up from her screen. "He has to wait." "Wait for what?" "Everyone else is eating." "For his father." "Those are my instructions." The nurse's tone was ice. "We don't deviate from the schedule." Clara felt something tighten in her chest. She'd grown up with a mother whose diabetes required strict meal schedules. She understood medical protocols. But this wasn't about health. This was about control. She looked back at the boy. He was watching the other children at nearby tables, laughing with their parents, eating cake. His small hands gripped the edge of his plate. "Don't," the nurse said, catching Clara's glance. "Stay in your lane." Clara had never been good at staying in her lane. She returned to the buffet station, ladled a bowl of butternut squash soup, warm, simple, safe for any dietary restrictions, and grabbed a soft roll. Her supervisor was busy arguing with the kitchen staff about dessert timing. "Table 7 needs this," Clara said to no one in particular. She crossed the ballroom floor with purpose, heart pounding. The nurse looked up too late. "Hi there." Clara set the soup down and crouched beside the boy's chair, meeting him at eye level. "I'm Clara. I noticed you might be hungry and this soup is really good. My mom makes one just like it." The boy stared at her, eyes wide with surprise. Up close, she could see how thin he was, how carefully he held himself, like he was afraid of taking up too much space. "I'm Matteo," he whispered. "That's a great name. Italian?" He nodded, a tiny smile flickering across his face. "Well, Matteo, I think you should eat while it's hot. Soup's always better that way." Clara pushed the bowl closer. "Do you need any help, or are you good?" "I'm good." His voice was stronger now. The nurse materialized beside them, like a storm cloud. "What do you think you're doing?" Clara stood slowly, keeping her body between Sonia and the boy. "I'm doing my job. Serving food." Not to him. Not without authorization. He's a child at a charity dinner. He's hungry. "I gave him soup." Clara's voice stayed level, but her pulse raced. "That's literally what I'm here to do. Do you have any idea who his father is?" "I don't care if his father is the president. That boy needs to eat." Behind her, she heard the quiet clink of a spoon against a bowl. Matteo had started eating. The nurse's face went white, then red. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." "Maybe. But at least a kid gets dinner." The commotion had attracted attention. Clara saw her supervisor, Michael, pushing through the crowd, his face already arranged in an apologetic grimace. Behind him came the event coordinator, Patricia Holbrook, a woman who wore authority like armor. "What is going on here?" Patricia's voice could cut glass. The nurse jumped in immediately. "This server violated direct orders regarding VIP protocol. Mr. DeLuca specifically instructed." "I gave a hungry child some soup," Clara interrupted. "That's it." Patricia's expression went from annoyed to horrified. You serve Lorenzo De Luca's son without clearance. The name meant nothing to Clara, but the reaction in the room told her everything. Conversation stopped. People stepped back. Even the band seemed to play quieter. Who's Lorenzo De Luca? Clara asked. The silence that followed was deafening. Patricia grabbed Clara's arm, dragging her away from the table. You're done. Collect your things and leave.
Now.
For feeding a kid. For breaking protocol with one of the most important families in Chicago. Do you understand what you've done? Clara looked back at Matteo. He was eating the soup slowly, carefully, but there was something different about him now. He sat up a little straighter. The invisible weight seemed lighter. Yeah, Clara said quietly. I fed a hungry child. If that gets me fired, then I don't want to work here anyway. She pulled off her apron, the name tag with Clara Martinez, Evergreen Catering, catching the light one last time. Michael wouldn't meet her eyes. The other servers looked away. But Matteo watched her. And for just a moment he smiled, a real smile, warm and genuine. Clara smiled back. Enjoy your soup, Matteo. As security escorted her out through the service entrance, Clara tried to calculate how she'd make next month's rent. Her mother's medication wasn't cheap, and losing this catering gig meant losing 20% of her income. The Chicago night air hit her face, cold and sharp. She'd taken the blue line here, and the next train wouldn't come for 30 minutes. Clara sat on the concrete steps, dropping her head into her hands. What had she been thinking? She'd been thinking about the look in that little boy's eyes. The way he'd said his own name, so quietly, like he wasn't sure he was allowed to exist. She'd been thinking about kindness, about doing what was right instead of what was safe. And now she was unemployed. Clara laughed bitterly into the night. At least Matteo got his soup. She had no idea that in exactly 12 hours, 3 black SUVs would pull up to the diner where she worked her morning shift. She had no idea that Lorenzo De Luca would walk through those doors, bringing his silent power and his desperate son. She had no idea that one bowl of soup was about to change everything. But for now, Clara Martinez sat on cold concrete steps, counting her losses and trying not to cry. The Bluebird Diner smelled like burnt coffee and bacon grease at 6 in the morning. Clara tied her apron with practiced efficiency, forcing last night's disaster out of her mind. She'd barely slept, running numbers in her head until sunrise. Losing the catering gig hurt, but she still had this job, waitressing the breakfast shift at the diner on West Madison. You look like hell, said Tommy, the cook, sliding a plate of hash browns across the counter. Thanks, Tommy. You're a real confidence booster. I'm serious. You okay? Clara grabbed the coffee pot. Just a rough night. I'll be fine. The morning rush was light. A few construction workers, an elderly couple who came in every Tuesday, a businessman absorbed in his laptop. Normal. Predictable. Safe. That's when the first SUV pulled up. Then the second. Then the third. All black. All identical. All expensive enough to be completely out of place in this neighborhood. Tommy stopped flipping pancakes. Clara? You expecting trouble? Why would I? The words died in her throat. The diner door opened. 2 men in dark suits entered first, their eyes scanning the room with professional precision. They weren't police. They were something else entirely, something that made every instinct Clara had screamed danger. Then he walked in. Lorenzo De Luca was younger than she expected, maybe 40, with a kind of face that belonged on Roman coins, all sharp angles and controlled power. His charcoal suit probably cost more than Clara made in 6 months. But it was his eyes that caught her. Dark, calculating, and completely unreadable. The diner went silent. The construction workers suddenly found their plates fascinating. The elderly woman clutched her husband's hand. Lorenzo's gaze swept the room and landed on Clara like a spotlight. Clara Martinez, it wasn't a question. Her heart hammered against her ribs. That's me. We need to talk. His voice was quiet, almost gentle, but it carried complete authority. I'm working. Not anymore. Lorenzo pulled out his wallet, extracted what looked like several $100 bills, and placed them on the counter. "For her time," he said to Tommy, who looked like he might pass out. "Sir, I don't know what this is about, but—" "My son," Lorenzo interrupted, "refused to eat anything last night after you left." Clara blinked. "What? The soup you gave him? That was the only thing he ate at the gala. After they fired you." He stopped eating completely. Lorenzo's expression remained neutral, but something flickered behind his eyes. "This morning, he still won't eat." He asked for the nice lady who gave him soup. The construction workers were very slowly inching toward the door. "Mr. DeLuca, I'm sorry your son won't eat, but I just gave him some soup. Any nurse or caregiver can." "No," the word was absolute. "They can't. Believe me, I've tried everything. Sonia and the entire staff couldn't get him to take a single bite this morning. But he keeps asking for you." Clara's mind raced. This didn't make sense. "Where is he now?" Lorenzo stepped aside, and Clara saw Matteo standing in the doorway, partially hidden behind his father's leg. He wore a different set of leg braces today. These ones were dark blue. His small hand gripped Lorenzo's jacket. Their eyes met, and Matteo's face brightened. "See." The boy's voice was soft but urgent. "I told you it was her." Something in Clara's chest twisted. She set down the coffee pot and walked around the counter, crouching down like she had last night. "Hey, Matteo. How's the soup sitting?" "Good," he hesitated. "Are you still mad they fired you?"
Nah.
"These things happen. Because of me."
No, sweetheart.
"Because adults sometimes make dumb decisions. That's not your fault." Lorenzo watched this exchange with the intensity of someone decoding a foreign language. "Miss Martinez," he said, pulling her attention back. "I'm offering you a position. Personal attendant to my son. You'll live on the estate, full security, housing included. The salary is $200,000 a year." Clara's knees nearly gave out. 200,000? That was more than she made in 5 years. "You want me to be his nanny?" "I want you to be whatever helps him eat, sleep, live normally." Lorenzo's mask cracked for just a second, and Clara saw something raw underneath. "He has cerebral palsy. Mild, but enough. Most people treat him like he's broken. You treated him like he was human." "He is human." "Then accept the position." Every logical part of Clara's brain screamed no. Lorenzo DeLuca wasn't just wealthy. The reaction in the room told her he was dangerous. Powerful in ways that had nothing to do with money. Taking this job meant entering a world she didn't understand. "I can't," she said quietly. Lorenzo's jaw tightened. "Name your price." "It's not about money." "Mr. DeLuca, I don't know anything about your world, but I know enough to be scared of it. I'm just a waitress. I can't." "She's nice to me." Matteo's voice was barely a whisper, but it cut through everything. "Papa, she's nice to me. She doesn't look at my legs first. She looks at my face." Lorenzo's entire body went still. For a moment, the dangerous man in the expensive suit disappeared, and Clara saw just a father, a desperate, exhausted father who'd run out of options. "Please," Lorenzo said, and the words sounded like it cost him everything. 1 week. Trial basis. If it doesn't work, you walk away.
No consecuencias.
Clara looked at Matteo, who was watching her with hope that broke her heart. She thought about her mother's medical bills, her student loans, the eviction notice she'd received last week. She thought about kindness, about what was right versus what was safe. 1 week, Clara heard herself say. "But I have conditions." Lorenzo's expression shifted. Surprise, maybe respect. "Name them." "I'm not a prisoner. I can leave if I want. And if anyone mistreats that boy while I'm there, I'm gone. No matter how much you pay me." A ghost of a smile touched Lorenzo's lips. "Agreed." Matteo's face split into a grin so wide it transformed him. Clara untied her apron for the second time in 12 hours, wondering what kind of life she'd just agreed to. Tommy watched from behind the counter, his face pale. "Clara, are you sure?" "No," she admitted. "But I'm doing it anyway." As Lorenzo's men escorted her to the SUV, Clara caught her reflection in the diner window. She looked terrified. She looked alive. The DeLuca estate sat behind iron gates in Lake Forest, 40 minutes north of Chicago. Clara pressed her face against the SUV window as they drove through manicured gardens that looked like they belonged in a magazine. The main house was a modern fortress, all glass, steel, and stone, beautiful and cold. "Holy shit," she whispered. One of Lorenzo's men, she'd learned his name was Marco, cracked a smile. "Wait until you see the inside." Inside was worse. Marble floors reflected everything like mirrors. Art that probably cost millions hung on walls the color of winter. Everything was pristine, perfect, and utterly lifeless. Clara had been in museums warmer than this. Lorenzo led them through a hallway to a study lined with books that looked like they'd never been touched. He gestured to a leather chair across from his desk. "Sit. We need to discuss the details." Clara sat. Matteo climbed into the chair beside her, his legs swinging slightly. The braces clicked softly. Lorenzo pulled out a folder. "The terms are as follows: $200,000 annually, paid monthly. Private room in the East Wing with full bathroom and sitting area. You'll have access to the entire estate except my personal office and the security wing. No questions about my business. Ever." "I wasn't planning on asking." "Good." Lorenzo's eyes were unreadable. "You'll accompany Matteo to his physical therapy sessions, doctor appointments, and any social functions he attends. You're responsible for his meals, his schedule, and his general well-being." "What about school?" "He's homeschooled. His tutor, Mrs. Patterson, handles education. You won't interfere with that." Clara nodded slowly. "What about the nursing staff?" Sonia mentioned. "The nursing staff is no longer your concern." Lorenzo's voice went cold. "In fact, I need you to wait here for a moment." He stood and left the room. Clara heard him speaking to someone in Italian, his voice sharp with authority. "What's happening?" Clara whispered to Matteo. The boy's eyes went wide. "Papa sounds angry." Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Multiple people. Lorenzo returned, followed by 5 people in medical scrubs, including Sonia, whose expression went from confused to murderous when she saw Clara. "You've got to be kidding me," Sonia spat. "You hired her." "I did." Lorenzo's voice was ice. "And now I'm firing all of you." The room exploded. "Mr. DeLuca, I've worked for your family for 6 years. This is insane. We're certified professionals." "She's a goddamn waitress." Lorenzo raised one hand. Silence fell like a guillotine. "My son has been in your care for 3 years," Lorenzo said quietly. "In that time, I've watched him withdraw. Stop speaking. Stop engaging with the world. You treated him like a medical condition instead of a child." "We followed every protocol," Sonia started. "You followed protocols that made him miserable." Lorenzo's voice could cut stone. "You withheld food as a control mechanism. You spoke about him like he wasn't in the room. You made him feel like a burden." Clara's stomach dropped. She hadn't realized how bad it was. Yesterday, a stranger showed him basic kindness, and for the first time in months, he smiled. Lorenzo looked at each staff member in turn. "If my son eats when she is here, then she's the only one who stays. The rest of you are done. Marco will escort you out. You'll receive 2 months severance. Sign the NDAs and we're finished." Sonia's face went purple. "You're making a massive mistake. She has no training, no experience. She has something you don't. She sees him as a person." Lorenzo's expression was carved granite. "Get out of my house." Marco and 2 other security men stepped forward. The message was clear. As the staff filed out, Sonia stopped in front of Clara. "This won't last," she hissed. "When you fail, and you will, don't come crying to me." Clara met her eyes. "I won't fail." "You don't even know what you've walked into." Sonia's smile was vicious. "But you will." After they left, the silence in the study was deafening. Clara's hands were shaking. She'd just watched a man fire 5 people like they were nothing. No warning, no second chances. Just gone.
Papa?
Mateo's voice was small. Is Sonia really not coming back? Really? Lorenzo's expression softened slightly. Is that okay? Mateo looked at Clara, then back at his father. Yes. Lorenzo returned to his desk, pulling out a contract. Miss Martinez, I need to be clear about something. The world I operate in is not kind. My enemies will see you as a weakness. Your association with this family puts you at risk. What kind of risk? The kind I have an entire security team to prevent. He pushed the contract across the desk. But you need to understand, once you sign this, you're under my protection. That protection comes with rules. You don't talk to the press. You don't discuss anything you see or hear in this house. And if anyone threatens you, you come directly to me. Clara stared at the contract. Her mother's face flashed in her mind. The medical bills, the insulin she could barely afford, the worry lines that had carved themselves deep over the past year. My mom, Clara said quietly. She has diabetes. She lives in Pilsen. If I take this job, can you make sure she's taken care of? Lorenzo studied her for a long moment. I'll have a private nurse check on her twice a week. Her medications will be covered. And if there's an emergency, my people will respond immediately. Why would you do that? Because you're asking for the right things. Lorenzo's expression was unreadable. You're not asking for cars or jewelry. You're asking me to protect your mother. That tells me what kind of person you are. Clara picked up the pen. Her hand hovered over the signature line. Once more, Lorenzo said. Are you certain? She looked at Mateo, who was watching her with those hopeful eyes. She thought about the empty coldness of this house, the way the boy's entire face had lit up over a bowl of soup. She thought about kindness, about purpose, about making a difference in one small life. Clara signed her name. I'm certain. Lorenzo nodded once, then extended his hand. When Clara shook it, his grip was firm, businesslike, but she felt the weight of the promise in it. Welcome to the family, Miss Martinez. The words should have been comforting. Instead, they felt like a door closing behind her, one she couldn't reopen. Mateo grabbed her hand, squeezing it tight. Can we have lunch now?
I'm hungry.
Clara laughed despite her nerves. Yeah, kiddo. Let's get you some food. As she led Mateo out of the study, Clara glanced back. Lorenzo was watching them with an expression she couldn't quite read. Part relief, part fear, part something else entirely. Outside, through the massive windows, she could see Sonia and the other nurses being escorted to their cars. Sonia looked back at the house one last time, her face twisted with rage. Clara shivered. She'd just made powerful enemies, and she'd been here less than an hour. Clara's room was bigger than her entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the gardens. A king-size bed with sheets that probably had a thread count higher than her credit score. A marble bathroom with a tub you could swim in. Everything perfectly arranged, perfectly lifeless. She sat on the edge of the bed, still wearing yesterday's clothes, and tried to process what she'd just done. A soft knock interrupted her spiral. Miss Martinez? A woman's voice, clipped and professional. I'm Mrs. Chun, the house manager. Mr. DeLuca asked me to show you around and get you settled. Clara opened the door. Mrs. Chun was in her 50s, with steel-gray hair pulled into a tight bun and eyes that could freeze water. Thank you, Clara said. I appreciate. Let me be clear, Mrs. Chen's smile was made of ice. I've worked for the DeLuca family for 15 years. I've seen people like you come and go. You'll last 2 weeks, maybe 3, before you realize you're in over your head. Clara blinked. Excuse me? You fired 5 trained professionals with decades of combined experience. You're a waitress playing nurse. The staff is not pleased. I didn't fire anyone. Mr. DeLuca made a rash decision because a child smiled. Mrs. Chen's expression was pure condescension. We'll see how long that smile lasts when reality sets in. Lunch is at noon in the East dining room. Don't be late. She left before Clara could respond.
Great.
Not even an hour in, and she'd already made enemies. Clara changed into the only other clothes she had, jeans and a clean t-shirt, and tried to find her way through the maze of hallways. Everything looked the same. Marble, glass, art, emptiness. She finally found what looked like a dining room. A long table that could seat 20, set for one. A single place setting in the middle, so formal it looked like a museum display. "This is insane," Clara muttered. "Clara." She turned to see Mateo coming down the hallway, his leg braces clicking against the floor. He was moving faster than she expected, his face bright with excitement. But he was also off balance, leaning too far forward. Clara moved without thinking, catching him just as he stumbled. "Whoa, easy there, speed racer," she steadied him, hands on his shoulders. "You trying to break a world record?" Mateo giggled, actually giggled. "I wanted to find you." "Well, you found me." "Nice driving." Clara looked at his braces, then at his flushed face. "But maybe we take the hallways a little slower, yeah? These floors are slippery." "Mrs. Chun says I have to use my wheelchair inside." "What do you want to do?" Mateo stared at her like she'd asked him to solve a math problem in a foreign language. "What?" "I asked what you want to do. Do you want the wheelchair or do you want to walk?" I want to walk. But it hurts sometimes." "Then walk when it doesn't hurt, and use the chair when it does. You're the boss of your own body, kiddo." Mateo's eyes went wide. "Really? Really?" Clara grinned. "Now, I heard something about lunch. Please tell me you eat more than just soup." "I like grilled cheese. A man of excellent taste. Come on, let's see if this fancy kitchen knows how to make normal people food." She started to walk toward what she hoped was the kitchen, but Mateo grabbed her hand. "Clara? Are you really staying?" The vulnerability in his voice broke her heart. "Yeah, Mateo. I'm really staying. Promise. Promise." The kitchen was like something from a cooking show, all stainless steel and granite counters. A chef in whites looked up from chopping vegetables, his expression immediately shifting to suspicion. "Can I help you?" His tone suggested he'd rather not.
Clara."
"And this is Mateo, who would like a grilled cheese for lunch. Is that something you can make, or should I handle it?" The chef's face tightened. "I'm preparing a nutritionally balanced lunch following the dietary plan Mrs. Chin provided." "That sounds great. But does that plan include grilled cheese?" "It includes pan-seared salmon with steamed vegetables." Clara looked at Mateo, who made a face. "How about this?" she said to the chef. "You make your salmon and I'll make the grilled cheese. Then Mateo can choose." "Fair. I don't think." "Perfect. Where's your cheese?" The chef looked like he'd swallowed a lemon, but he gestured to the industrial refrigerator. Clara found butter, cheddar, and bread, and got to work. The kitchen staff watched her like she was juggling knives. "So, Mateo," Clara said while buttering bread, "what do you do for fun around here?" "I read. And I watch movies." "What kind of movies?" "Superhero ones. Papa says they're too violent, but I like them anyway." "Smart kid. Which superhero is the best?"
"Spider-Man."
"Because he's just a regular person who tries to help people." Clara flipped the sandwich. "You know what? I think you and Spider-Man have a lot in common." "I can't climb walls." "No, but you're brave. You keep going even when things are hard." "That's pretty heroic." Mateo went quiet, processing this. Then, so softly she almost missed it. Nobody ever said that before. Clara's throat tightened. She focused on plating the sandwich, cutting it into triangles the way her mom used to. "Well, I'm saying it now." She carried the plate to the dining room, Mateo following. Instead of the formal table, she found a smaller breakfast nook with windows overlooking the garden. "Here. Much better than that museum out there." Mateo climbed into a chair, eyeing the sandwich. "It looks perfect. Taste it first." "I might have burned it." He took a bite, chewed, and smiled. "It's really good." "Excellent. Dig in." That's when Clara felt it, the weight of someone watching. She turned to find Lorenzo standing in the doorway, partially hidden by shadow. His expression was completely neutral, but his eyes tracked every movement. How long had he been there? Clara met his gaze, refusing to look away. After a long moment, Lorenzo gave the smallest nod and disappeared back into the hallway. Papa watches sometimes, Mateo said through a mouthful of sandwich. He thinks I don't notice. He loves you. That's what parents do. He's busy a lot. Busy people still love their kids. Mateo considered this. You're not scared of him. Should I be? Everyone else is. Clara watched Mateo take another bite, some color finally returning to his cheeks. Well, I'm not everyone else. As Mateo finished his lunch, actually finished it without anyone forcing him, Clara heard whispers from the hallway. Staff passing by, watching, judging. Let them watch. She'd signed a contract, made a promise to a little boy who'd been treated like he was broken. Whatever came next, suspicious staff, cold hallways, dangerous enemies, she'd handle it. Because for the first time in years, Clara felt like she was doing something that mattered. Mateo pushed his empty plate away and smiled at her. Can we do this again tomorrow? Kiddo, Clara said, we're doing this every day. By day 4, Mateo was a different child. Clara watched him at breakfast, chattering about a book he'd read, actually using his hands to gesture as he described the plot. 3 days ago, he'd barely whispered.
Now he was animated, alive.
And then the dragon turned out to be protecting the village the whole time, not attacking it, so the night felt really bad, and Clara, are you listening? She smiled. Every word. The night felt bad because he made assumptions. Exactly. Mateo took a big bite of scrambled eggs. Mrs. Patterson says I should write my own story. Do you think I could? I think you could write 10 stories. From across the breakfast nook, Mrs. Chen watched with barely concealed shock. The boy who'd refused to eat for months was on his second helping. Mr. DeLuca would like to see you, Mrs. Chen said stiffly. In his study.
Now.
Clara's stomach dropped. Is something wrong? He didn't say. Mateo grabbed Clara's hand. You'll come back, right? Of course. Finish your breakfast. I'll be 10 minutes. Lorenzo's study felt different in daylight, less fortress, more office. He stood at the window, hands in his pockets, watching the grounds. Another man sat in the corner, older, with silver hair and eyes that missed nothing. Miss Martinez, Lorenzo said without turning. This is Alberto Rossi, my consigliera. My advisor. Lawyer. Alberto corrected with a slight smile. Let's keep it professional. Clara nodded carefully. She'd seen enough movies to know what consigliere really meant. Alberto has questions, Lorenzo said. I need you to answer them honestly. Her pulse quickened. Okay. Alberto pulled out a file. Clara Maria Martinez. Born in Chicago, Pilsen neighborhood. Father deceased when you were 12. Mother, Rosa Martinez, type 2 diabetic. You attended Roosevelt University, dropped out after 2 years due to financial issues. Currently working, or you were, 2 jobs. No criminal record. No connections to any rival families, he looked up. You're exactly what you appear to be. Is that a problem? Clara asked. On the contrary. It's refreshing. Alberto closed the file. But I had to be sure. Your sudden appearance raised questions. Mr. DeLuca's enemies would love to plant someone in his household. I'm not a plant. I'm a waitress who gave a kid some soup. And now you're much more than that. Alberto's expression was serious. Have you received any unusual contact in the past few days? Calls, messages, people following you? Clara hesitated. Actually, yes. Sonia, the fired nurse. She called yesterday. Lorenzo's entire body tensed. What did she say? She wants to meet. Says she has information about the family that I need to know for Mateo's safety. I haven't responded. Don't. Lorenzo's voice was sharp. Block her number. If she approaches you in person, you call security immediately. Understood. You think she's dangerous? I think she's angry and potentially reckless. That makes her dangerous.
Alberto stood.
I'll have someone monitor her communications. See who she's talking to, he nodded to Clara. You did the right thing, not responding. Keep it that way. After Alberto left, Lorenzo finally turned to face her. Mateo requested something this morning. What? He wants you to accompany him to his physical therapy session this afternoon. He's never asked anyone to come before. Usually, he fights us to get him there. Clara felt warmth spread through her chest. Of course I'll go. Dr. Kim, his therapist, will meet you both at 3. Marco will drive you, Lorenzo paused. Miss Martinez, Clara, I need you to understand something. What you're doing for my son, I can't adequately express. He trailed off, the most emotion she'd seen from him. For a moment, the dangerous crime boss disappeared, and she saw just a father who'd watched his child suffer. You don't have to express anything, Clara said quietly. Mateo's a great kid. I'm just giving him what he deserves. Lorenzo studied her for a long moment. You really believe that, don't you? That it's simple. Isn't it? In my world, nothing is simple. The therapy center was surprisingly normal, colorful walls, exercise equipment, cheerful staff. Dr. Kim was a Korean woman in her 30s with kind eyes and strong hands. So, you're the one we've been hearing about, Dr. Kim said, shaking Clara's hand. Mateo hasn't stopped talking about you. Mateo, already on the exercise mat, waved enthusiastically. Clara's here. I see that. Ready to work? For the next hour, Clara watched Mateo push through exercises that looked excruciating. Leg stretches, resistance training, balance work. He gritted his teeth, but never complained. Between sets, he looked at Clara, checking if she was still there. You're doing amazing, Clara said when he finished a particularly difficult stretch. It hurts. I know. But look how much stronger you're getting. Dr. Kim pulled Clara aside while Mateo rested. I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it. I've worked with him for 2 years. This is the most engaged I've ever seen him. I'm just treating him normally. That's not as common as you'd think, Dr. Kim glanced at Mateo. Kids with disabilities often get smothered or ignored. You're doing neither. You're just
There.
present. It matters more than you know. On the drive back, Mateo fell asleep in the SUV, exhausted from therapy. Clara watched the Chicago suburbs blur past, her phone buzzing in her pocket. Another text from Sonia. You're making a mistake. He's not who you think he is. Meet me. For Mateo's sake. Clara deleted it without responding. When they arrived at the estate, Lorenzo was waiting. He looked at his sleeping son, something soft crossing his face. He worked hard today, Clara said quietly. Dr. Kim says he's making real progress. Lorenzo carefully lifted Mateo from the car, the boy barely stirring. Alberto completed his investigation. You're clear. No red flags. That's good. It is Lorenzo adjusted Mateo in his arms. It means you're exactly what you claim to be. In my experience, that's rare. Maybe you're looking in the wrong places. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Maybe I am. As Lorenzo carried Mateo inside, Clara's phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a text. It was a voicemail from an unknown number. She listened, her blood running cold. Sonia's voice, sharp and venomous. You think ignoring me will work? I know things, Clara. Things about Lorenzo DeLuca that would make you run. Things about why Mateo's really sick. Call me back, or I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of man you're working for. You have 24 hours. Clara stood in the driveway, the phone shaking in her hand. What did Sonia know? And was it the truth, or just the desperate threats of someone who'd lost everything? She looked up at the massive house, at the window where she could see Lorenzo settling Mateo into bed, patient and gentle. Whatever Sonia thought she knew, Clara wasn't interested. She deleted the voicemail and went inside. But the words stayed with her. Things about why Mateo's really sick. What did that mean? Clara knew something was wrong when Mateo wasn't in his room at breakfast time. Mrs. Chen. She found the house manager in the hallway. Where's Mateo? He's always up by 7-inch. Dr. Kim rescheduled his therapy to 8 o'clock. I assumed you knew. Mrs. Chen's smile was pure ice. The car left 10 minutes ago.
What?
I was supposed to go with him. Were you? I didn't receive that memo. Perhaps there was a miscommunication. Clara's hands clenched. There was no miscommunication. You knew I go with him. I'm very busy, Miss Martinez. If you have concerns, take them to Mr. DeLuca. Mrs. Chun brushed past her. Excuse me. Clara pulled out her phone and called Marco. Yeah, we're at Dr. Kim's, Marco said. Kid keeps asking where you are. You want me to turn around? No, the session's already started. Is he okay? Upset, but he'll manage. What happened? Stuff happened. Clara hung up, fury burning in her chest. It was the third miscommunication in 2 days. Yesterday, her laundry had been accidentally mixed with someone else's, ruining her favorite shirt. The day before, she'd been told Lorenzo wanted to see her urgently, only to find his study empty and him annoyed by the interruption during a meeting. The staff was sabotaging her. Quietly, cleverly, and completely deniably. Clara found Mateo when he returned, his face streaked with tears. You weren't there, he said, voice breaking. You promised you'd always be there. I know, buddy.
I'm so sorry.
There was a mix-up with the schedule. You left me. The words hit like a punch. Mateo, no. I would never leave you. Someone gave me the wrong information. That's not the same thing. But the trust in his eyes had cracked, just slightly. It would take time to repair. That afternoon, Lorenzo summoned her to his study. Alberto was there too, his expression grave. There have been complaints, Lorenzo said without preamble. Staff members concerned about your unconventional approach to Mateo's care. Clara's stomach dropped. What kind of complaints? That you're undermining established routines, ignoring medical protocols, being, quote, unprofessional. Lorenzo's expression was unreadable. Mrs. Chin submitted a formal report this morning. Of course she did. Clara's voice was sharp. Did that report mention that she deliberately kept me from Mateo's therapy session? That he was upset because she made sure I wasn't there? Alberto leaned forward. Can you prove that? Can she prove I'm unprofessional? Clara shot back. Or is this just about people resenting that I don't bow and scrape to them? Clara, Lorenzo's voice carried a warning. These people have worked for my family for years. They deserve respect. And I deserve not to be sabotaged. Clara stood her ground. Mateo is thriving. You've seen it yourself. But your staff would rather maintain their control than see him happy. The silence was heavy. Lorenzo and Alberto exchanged a look. Handle it, Lorenzo said finally to Alberto. Quietly. I want to know who's behind this. After Alberto left, Lorenzo gestured for Clara to sit. Tonight, we're having dinner. Family dinner. You and Mateo will join me in the main dining room at 7-inch. I don't think that's... It wasn't a request. His tone softened slightly. Mateo asked if you could eat with us. He's never asked for anyone to join family meals before. I'm honoring that request. The main dining room was as intimidating as Clara expected. Crystal chandeliers, paintings worth millions, a table that could seat 30. 3-place settings were arranged at one end, Lorenzo at the head, Mateo to his right, Clara to his left. Staff served the meal in complete silence. Roasted chicken, vegetables, potatoes. Everything perfect, everything cold. Lorenzo ate mechanically, his attention on his phone. Mateo picked at his food, the earlier joy completely gone. The silence pressed down like a weight. Clara couldn't take it anymore. So, Mateo, she said, her voice too loud in the quiet. Tell your dad about the story you're writing. Mateo looked up, startled. Lorenzo didn't even glance away from his phone. It's just a story, Mateo mumbled. It's not just anything. It's about a dragon, right? Tell him. Mateo glanced at his father, then backed down. Papa's busy. Clara looked at Lorenzo, who was still scrolling through his phone, jaw tight. She recognized that look, a man drowning in responsibilities, shutting out everything else. Mateo, sit up a bit, Clara said gently. You'll breathe better. Mateo straightened, but he was hunched over his plate, trying to make himself small. Clara reached over and gently touched his shoulder. Not like you're in trouble. Like you're a king at his own table, she demonstrated, shoulders back but relaxed. There you go. Matteo adjusted his posture, and something shifted. He looked less like a burden and more like a boy having dinner. The dragon is misunderstood, Matteo said quietly. Everyone thinks he's mean, but he's just lonely. Clara smiled. I like that. What happens to him? A knight comes to fight him, but then realizes the dragon is protecting something. So they become friends instead. Plot twist. I love it. For the first time, Matteo laughed, a real laugh that echoed in the cavernous room. Lorenzo's phone lowered. He was watching them, his expression complicated. Clara caught his eye and saw something there, confusion maybe. Or longing. As if he was watching something he couldn't quite understand but desperately wanted to. Matteo reads constantly, Clara said to Lorenzo. Have you seen his book collection? Kid's going through novels faster than I can keep up. Lorenzo blinked. No, primen. Papa's always working, Matteo said. It wasn't accusatory, just fact. The words hung in the air. Lorenzo's expression shifted, something raw and painful crossing his face. What else happens in the story? Lorenzo asked quietly. Matteo's eyes widened. You want to know?
Ido.
For the next 20 minutes, Matteo talked. About his story, his books, his therapy progress. Lorenzo listened, really listened, his phone face down on the table. Clara watched the two of them, father and son, finding their way back to each other across a table built for strangers. But she also saw Mrs. Chen watching from the doorway, her expression cold. And she saw how Lorenzo kept glancing at her, at Clara, like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. Like her presence was disrupting something he'd carefully built, walls that kept him safe, kept him in control, kept him from feeling too much. After dinner, Lorenzo stopped her in the hallway. You changed everything in there, he said quietly. The way we eat, the way we talk, the way my son looks at me. Is that a bad thing? I don't know yet, his dark eyes held hers. But it terrifies me. He walked away before she could respond. Clara stood alone in the marble hallway, understanding finally clicking into place. Lorenzo wasn't just protecting Matteo. He was protecting himself from hope, from vulnerability, from the pain of trying and failing. And Clara had just walked in and shattered every carefully constructed wall. The parking garage in Wicker Park was empty except for two cars. Sonia's beat-up Honda and a black Mercedes with tinted windows. She checked her phone. 11:47 p.m. 3 minutes early. The Mercedes door opened. A man stepped out tall. Expensive suit, cold eyes. Vincent Caruso. Everyone in Chicago knew the name, even if they pretended not to. You're late, Vincent said, though she wasn't. I'm here, Sonia's voice was steady, but her hands shook. Do you have it? Vincent pulled an envelope from his jacket. 20,000. As promised. But I need something more substantial than schedules and medical records. I gave you everything. His therapy times, his routines, the layout of the East Wing. Which we can't use without proper confirmation. Vincent's smile was razor sharp. Lorenzo De Luca's security is too tight. We need him vulnerable. Distracted. What do you want from me? The new girl. Clara Martinez. Vincent leaned against his car. She's the weakness. De Luca fired his entire staff for her. His son is attached to her. She's leverage. Sonia's jaw clenched. She's a nobody. A waitress. A nobody who has more access to that family than you ever did. Vincent's eyes glittered. I hear she even eats dinner with them now. Very intimate. The word hung in the air like poison. You want me to what? Kidnap her?
God, no.
Too messy. Vincent lit a cigarette. I want you to destroy her credibility. Make Lorenzo question her. Make the boy afraid of her. Drive her out.
How?
Use your imagination. You were a nurse. You know how to make things look concerning. He exhaled smoke. And if you need extra motivation, remember that Lorenzo De Luca fired you without severance, without references. He blacklisted you from every medical facility in Chicago. You're toxic because of him. Sonia felt the rage burning fresh. 3 weeks ago, she had a career. Now she couldn't even get hired at an urgent care clinic. What if she doesn't break? Then we move to plan B. But trust me, people like her always break. They're not built for our world. Vincent dropped the cigarette and crushed it under his shoe. You have 1 week. Make it count. He got back in the Mercedes and drove away, leaving Sonia alone with $20,000 and a heart full of venom. 2 days later, Clara was leaving the grocery store when Sonia appeared. We need to talk. Clara's blood went cold. She looked around the parking lot, late afternoon, people everywhere. Safe enough. No, we don't. Yes, we do. Sonia blocked her path. I tried calling, texting.
You ignored me.
That was a mistake. Sonia, I don't know what you want, but I want you to quit. Clara stared at her. What?
Quit.
Walk away from the DeLuca house. Tell Lorenzo it's not working out. Go back to your little diner and forget any of this happened. Why would I do that? Sonia's smile was vicious. Because if you don't, I'll make your life a living hell. I have connections, Clara. Journalists who would love a story about how a waitress seduced a mob boss to get a six-figure job. About how Lorenzo DeLuca fired experienced medical professionals for a woman he's sleeping with. Clara's face went hot. That's a lie. Is it? You live in his house. You eat dinner with him. You're with his son constantly. Sonia stepped closer. Perception is reality. And I can make everyone perceive exactly what I want them to. Nobody will believe that, won't they? Single woman, desperate for money. Suddenly living in luxury with a wealthy widower? The tabloids will eat it up. His enemies will use it. And Matteo, Sonia's voice dropped to a whisper. Poor Matteo will have to grow up hearing rumors about his father and the nanny. Clara's hands clenched around her grocery bags. You're threatening a child. I'm offering you a way out. Take it.
No.
Sonia's expression darkened. You have no idea what you're involved in. Lorenzo DeLuca isn't some misunderstood single dad. He's a criminal. His business destroys lives. And that sick boy you're so attached to? There are things about his condition you don't know. Things Lorenzo doesn't want you to know. What things? Quit and I'll tell you. Stay and you'll find out the hard way. Sonia pulled out her phone, showing Clara a screen full of photos, doctored images of Clara and Lorenzo standing close, leaving restaurants, sitting in the garden. Nothing explicit, but intimate enough to fuel speculation. Where did you get those? I have friends who watch the estate. Friends who can make these photos go viral in an hour. Sonia's thumb hovered over the send button. Or you can walk away right now. Your choice. Clara looked at the photos, her stomach churning. They were manipulated, angles changed, context removed, but convincing enough to destroy reputations. If you release those, Clara said quietly, Lorenzo will come after you. Let him try. I'm not afraid of Lorenzo DeLuca. You should be. Is that a threat?
No.
It's a warning. Clara met Sonia's eyes. I don't know what you think you'll gain from this, but it won't work. I'm not quitting because you're bitter about being fired. This isn't about being bitter. Yes, it is. You failed that boy. You treated him like a burden and got caught. Now you want to blame me for your mistakes. Clara stepped closer. But here's what's going to happen. You're going to delete those photos, block my number, and stay away from Matteo. Because if you do anything, to hurt that child, I won't need Lorenzo to come after you. I'll handle it myself. Sonia laughed, but it sounded hollow. You think you're tough now? Playing bodyguard? I think I'm someone who keeps her promises. And I promised Matteo I'd protect him. That includes protecting him from people like you. You have 24 hours to change your mind. I won't. Sonia's expression twisted with rage. Then you're a fool. And when everything falls apart, when those photos leak, when the truth comes out, when Lorenzo shows you what he really is, don't say I didn't warn you. She stormed off, leaving Clara standing in the parking lot with shaking hands and a racing heart. Clara got in her car and locked the doors. She pulled out her phone, staring at Lorenzo's number. She should tell him. She should report this immediately. But Sonia's words echoed. There are things about his condition you don't know. What did that mean? Was Mateo's cerebral palsy hiding something else? Or was Sonia just trying to manipulate her? Clara drove back to the estate, mind spinning. The gates opened automatically, and she saw Lorenzo's car in the driveway. He was home early. She found him in the garden with Mateo, watching his son navigate the stone path with his braces. Lorenzo's expression was soft, unguarded. Clara, Mateo waved. Look how far I walked. That's amazing, buddy. Lorenzo turned, and his expression immediately shifted. What's wrong? Nothing. Your hands are shaking. Clara looked down.
He was right.
Can we talk? Privately? Lorenzo's eyes darkened. He called to one of his men to watch Mateo, then led Clara inside to his study. Tell me. Clara took a breath. Sonia confronted me. She wants me to quit. She's threatening to release fake photos, making it look like we're involved. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. What photos? Clara showed him on her phone. Lorenzo's expression went from stone to murder. She's working with someone, Clara added. She has to be. Those photos required surveillance. Alberto, Lorenzo was already dialing. Get me everything on Sonia Ramirez. Who she's talking to, where she's been, who's funding her. I want it in an hour. He hung up and looked at Clara. You should have called me the moment she approached you. I handled it. This isn't your world to handle. Then teach me, Clara's voice was firm. Because I'm not leaving Mateo. Not for threats, not for money, not for anything. Lorenzo stared at her, something complicated moving behind his eyes. She mentioned something else, Clara said carefully. About Mateo's condition. That there are things I don't know. Lorenzo's expression closed completely. Sonia is lying. Is she? Yes. But he looked away when he said it. And Clara knew, whatever secret Sonia was hinting at, it was real. I can't do this. Mateo stood in his bedroom doorway, dressed in a navy suit that made him look older than 8. His hands twisted together, and his leg braces gleamed under the new dress pants Lorenzo had ordered specially tailored. Sure you can, Clara said gently. We've practiced walking on different surfaces all week. You're ready. There will be photographers. People staring. People always stare at cool kids. Clara, I'm serious. She crouched down to his level.
So am I.
You know what they'll see? A brave boy who doesn't let anything stop him. That's pretty cool in my book. Lorenzo appeared behind Mateo, dressed in a black tuxedo that made him look like he'd stepped out of a film. The car is ready. We should go. Papa, I don't think. Mateo, Lorenzo's voice was firm, but not unkind. This is the Children's Arts Foundation Gala. We donate to them every year. They've asked specifically if you'd attend. You don't have to stay long, but we need to make an appearance. Mateo looked at Clara, desperate. Will you stay with me the whole time? Every single second. Promise. Promise. The Art Institute of Chicago was lit up like a palace. Red carpet, flashbulbs, people in gowns and tuxedos streaming up the iconic steps. Clara felt wildly out of place in her borrowed dress, something Lorenzo had his assistant arrange when he announced Clara would attend as Mateo's companion. The moment they stepped out of the SUV, cameras exploded. Mr. DeLuca. Over here. Lorenzo, who's the woman? Is that your son? Mateo froze, his hand locked in Clara's. The stairs loomed ahead, marble, steep, crowded with people. Hey, Clara whispered, blocking the cameras with her body. Look at me, not them. Just me. Mateo's eyes found hers. We're going to take this slow. One step at a time. If you need to stop, we stop. If you need to hold the railing, we hold it. Your pace, okay? He nodded, breathing hard. Lorenzo moved ahead, drawing attention, greeting Chicago's elite with practiced ease. Clara and Mateo followed, taking the step slowly. She kept her hand on his arm, steadying but not pulling, letting him set the rhythm. That's it. You're doing great. Halfway up, Mateo stumbled slightly. Clara caught him instantly, her grip firm but casual, like it was nothing. Like they were just two people climbing stairs. Nice save, she murmured. Keep going. By the time they reached the top, Mateo was smiling, small but real. Clara heard the clicks of cameras capturing the moment. Inside, the museum was transformed into a glittering ballroom. Ice sculptures, string quartet, champagne towers. Lorenzo was immediately swarmed by people wanting his attention, politicians, businessmen, society matrons. Miss Martinez Alberto appeared at her elbow. Let me show you to your table. They were seated near the front, at a table with Lorenzo's name on a placard. Other families milled around, their children running between tables laughing. Mateo watched them, something wistful in his expression. You want to check out the art? Clara asked. I heard they have a special kids gallery. Can we? That's why we're here. They navigated through the crowd, Clara alert to every person who got too close, every stare that lasted too long. But mostly people smiled. A few even greeted Mateo directly. Young man, I love your suit, an elderly woman said. Thank you, Mateo replied, his voice stronger than Clara expected. In the kids' gallery, interactive exhibits were set up, touchable sculptures, a digital painting wall, art supply stations. Mateo lit up. Can I try the painting wall? Absolutely. For 20 minutes, Mateo created swirling digital art, laughing when colors blended in unexpected ways. Clara took a photo of him smiling at his creation, pure joy, unfiltered. She didn't notice the journalist watching from across the gallery, or the photographer capturing images of Clara and Mateo together, heads bent over the art, comfortable and natural. When they returned to the main ballroom for dinner, Lorenzo was watching for them. His expression was complicated, relief, pride, something else Clara couldn't name. He's having a good time, Clara reported quietly. I can see that Lorenzo's eyes stayed on his son. Thank you. During dinner, a woman in a designer gown approached their table. Lorenzo, how wonderful to see Mateo out. He's gotten so big. Mrs. Hamilton Lorenzo stood politely. Yes, he has. And who is this? Mrs. Hamilton's eyes raked over Clara with undisguised curiosity. Clara Martinez. She's Mateo's companion. The word hung in the air, deliberately ambiguous. How lovely, Mrs. Hamilton's smile was sharp. You must be very close with the family. I take care of Mateo, Clara said evenly. I'm sure you do, the implication in her tone was clear. After she left, Lorenzo leaned closer. Ignore her. Chicago society thrives on speculation. Is that going to be a problem? Not if we don't make it one. The next morning, Clara understood what Lorenzo meant. The Chicago Tribune Society page featured a large photo, Mateo beaming at the art wall, Clara beside him, her hand on his shoulder. The caption read, Lorenzo De Luca's son Mateo makes rare public appearance with mysterious companion Clara Martinez. Her phone exploded with texts from friends she hadn't spoken to in months. Her mother called 3 times. Even Tommy from the diner texted, You're famous now? What the hell? But it was the other article that made her blood run cold. A gossip blog had posted multiple photos, Mateo and Clara on the stairs, at dinner, in the gallery. The headline, Mob Boss's Secret, De Luca's new nanny or something more? The comments section was vicious. Gold digger. Using a disabled kid to get to his money. What happened to the real mother? Clara's hands shook as she read. This was exactly what Sonia had threatened. Alberto appeared in her doorway. Don't read those. Too late. Clara, you need to see something else. His expression was grim. He handed her his tablet, showing a different article from a crime blog. De Luca's weakness exposed. Rival families take notice of boss's vulnerable son. The article speculated about security risks, about how Mateo's public appearance made him and Clara potential targets. It quoted unnamed sources saying Lorenzo had gone soft by allowing his disabled son into the spotlight. This is bad, Clara whispered. This is war, Alberto's voice was quiet. By bringing Matteo out, Lorenzo sent a message that his son isn't hidden away. But his rivals received a different message, that the boy is accessible. That you are too. What do we do? Lorenzo is doubling security. Marco will be with you and Matteo at all times outside the estate. We're monitoring threats, Alberto paused. But Clara, you should know Vincent Caruso's people were at that gala. We have security footage of them watching you. Clara felt ice slide down her spine. Caruso. That's who Sonia's working with. We believe so. And now they've seen how close you are to Matteo. How much Lorenzo trusts you. Alberto's expression was serious. You've become a target. Not because of what you are, but because of what you represent. What do I represent?
Hope.
Weakness. Away in Alberto stood. Be careful, Clara. The game just changed. After he left, Clara sat in her room, staring at the photos of Matteo's smiling face. One night out, one moment of normalcy, and now they were in someone's crosshairs. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. The text was simple. He looked happy last night.
Enjoy it while it lasts.
Clara deleted it, but the damage was done. They'd been seen. They'd been noticed. And somewhere in Chicago, dangerous people were making plans. The photos dropped at midnight. Clara was reading in bed when her phone started buzzing nonstop. Text after text, notification after notification. She opened Twitter and her stomach dropped. Hashtag DeLuca scandal was trending. The photos were everywhere. Clara and Lorenzo in the garden, standing close, except they'd never stood that close. Clara touching his arm at dinner, except that was Matteo's arm, cropped out. Clara leaving Lorenzo's study late at night, except that was from when she'd reported Sonia's threats, and the timestamp had been changed to make it look like 2 a.m. The headlines were brutal. Nanny or mistress. Inside Lorenzo DeLuca's home, mob boss's secret romance, from waitress to mansion in days. Sources say DeLuca's companion shares more than meals with crime boss. The photos looked real. Professional. Damning. Clara's hands shook as she scrolled. Twitter was on fire with speculation. Instagram influencers were making commentary videos. Even legitimate news sites were picking up the story with carefully worded, alleged disclaimers.
Her phone rang.
Her mother. Mija, what is happening? Mrs. Garcia showed me these pictures online. Please tell me this isn't true. Mom, they're fake. Someone edited them. They look very real, Clara. I know. But I promise you, nothing is happening between me and Mr. DeLuca. I'm just taking care of his son. People are saying terrible things about you. About him. Maybe you should come home. I can't. Matteo needs me. And what about what you need? What about your safety? Her mother's voice cracked. This man is dangerous, Clara. Everyone knows it. Mom, I have to go. I'll call you tomorrow. She hung up before her mother could argue, before the doubt in her voice could take root. A knock on her door made her jump. Marco stood in the hallway, his expression grim. Mr. DeLuca wants to see you.
Now.
Clara's blood went cold. What time is it? 12:47 nachts. This was it. She was fired. Lorenzo had seen the photos, believed them or didn't care if they were real, and was cutting his losses. She'd been stupid to think this could work. She pulled a sweatshirt over her pajamas and followed Marco through the dark hallways. The estate felt different at night, more fortress, less home. Lorenzo's study door was open, light spilling into the corridor. He stood by the window, his back to the door, still dressed in the shirt and pants from dinner, but with his tie gone and sleeves rolled up. Sir? Clara's voice was barely a whisper. Close the door.
She did.
The click echoed like a gunshot. Lorenzo turned, and Clara had never seen him look like this, exhausted, furious, and something else. Wounded, maybe. I assume you've seen them, he said quietly. The photos. Yes. All of them. I think so. Lorenzo pulled up his tablet and scrolled through image after image. Some Clara recognized from the surveillance photos Sonia had shown her. Others were new, even more intimate, even more manipulated. One showed Clara allegedly leaving Lorenzo's bedroom at dawn. Another showed them in what looked like an embrace but was actually her catching Matteo from a stumble, with Matteo digitally removed.
These are all over the internet, Lorenzo said.
Every gossip site, every social media platform. By morning, they'll be on the news. My lawyers are already working on takedown notices, but once something is online, he trailed off. Clara's throat was tight. I'm so sorry. For what? For bringing this to your door. Sonia warned me she'd do this. I should have. You should have what? Lorenzo's voice was sharp. Run? Let her win. I should have been more careful. Clara, these photos are fabricated. My security team confirmed it. The timestamps are altered. The angles are impossible. Some images are composites of multiple shots. He set down the tablet. I know they're lies. Clara's knees nearly gave out with relief. You believe me? Of course I believe you. Lorenzo looked almost offended. Did you think I wouldn't? I thought. Clara's voice broke. I thought you were firing me. Something shifted in Lorenzo's expression. He moved closer, stopping a few feet away. In the low light, he looked younger, more human. Clara, I need you to understand something. This is what my world looks like. Lies, manipulation, attacks on anything and anyone I care about. His dark eyes held hers. My enemies will use you against me. They'll fabricate stories, create scandals, put you in danger, all to weaken me. I know.
Do you?
Because this is just the beginning. Lorenzo's voice was intense. If you stay, it gets worse. Much worse. These photos are nothing compared to what they'll do if they think they can break me through you. Then what are you saying? That I should leave? I'm saying you need to decide whether you're ready for this world. Lorenzo's jaw was tight. Whether you're ready for the scrutiny, the danger, the constant threat. Whether protecting my son is worth becoming a target yourself. Clara thought about Matteo sleeping upstairs, probably unaware of any of this. About the smile on his face at the museum. About the way he'd started calling her Clara instead of Miss Martinez, like she was family. I already decided, she said firmly. When I signed that contract. When I promised Matteo I wouldn't leave. I'm ready. You don't know what you're saying. Yes, I do. Clara stepped closer. You're right. I didn't understand your world when I walked into it. But I understand now. I understand that people will try to hurt Matteo to hurt you. That they'll use me as a weapon if they can. That staying here means putting myself in the crosshairs. She met his eyes. And I'm staying anyway. Lorenzo stared at her, something complicated moving across his face.
Why?
Because that little boy upstairs deserves someone who won't run when things get hard. Because for the first time in my life, I'm doing something that matters. Clara's voice was steady. And because despite everything, the danger, the lies, the threats, I trust you to keep us safe. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. You trust me. Lorenzo said it like he was testing the words, like they were foreign.
Ido.
That's a mistake. No, it's not. Lorenzo turned back to the window, his reflection ghostly in the glass. My wife died 6 years ago.
Car accident.
At least, that's what the official report says. Clara went still. She was caught in crossfire meant for me. A rival family's attempt on my life. She wasn't the target, but she's just as dead. His voice was hollow. After that, I built walls. I kept Matteo hidden, kept emotions locked down, kept everyone at arm's length. Because caring about people makes you weak, makes you vulnerable. Lorenzo, you walked in and destroyed every wall I built. You made my son visible. You made me feel. He stopped. You made me hope. And hope is the most dangerous thing in my world. Clara's chest ached. Maybe it's also the most important thing. He turned to face her, and for the first time, she saw past the crime boss, past the protective father, to the man underneath, scared, lonely, desperate to do right by his son while keeping him safe. If you stay, Lorenzo said quietly, everything changes. For all of us. Then let it change. They stood in the study as the city lights twinkled through the windows, two people from different worlds trying to protect the same little boy. "We'll handle Sonia," Lorenzo finally said. "And Caruso. And anyone else who comes after you." "We." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "You said you trust me. That goes both ways." It was the first time he'd admitted he needed anyone. As Clara left his study, she realized the foundation had shifted. This wasn't just a job anymore. This was family. And families were worth fighting for. The therapy clinic was in Lincoln Park, a converted brownstone with accessibility ramps and large windows. Clara had been there a dozen times now, and the routine was always the same. Marco drove. Two other security men swept the building, then stayed in the lobby while Clara accompanied Matteo to a session. Today felt different. Clara couldn't explain it, just a tightness in her chest, a prickling at the back of her neck. She'd learned to trust her instincts working late shifts in rough neighborhoods. Something was wrong. "You okay?" Marco asked, noticing her scanning the street.
Yeah.
"Just jumpy after everything." "Understandable. But you're safe here. We've got eyes everywhere." Inside, Dr. Kim greeted them with her usual warm smile. "Ready to work, Matteo?" Always Matteo was more confident now, almost eager for therapy. Clara settled into her usual chair by the window, while Matteo started his warm-up stretches. Outside, Lincoln Park was busy with morning joggers and dog walkers. Normal. Safe. Then she saw the van. Dark blue, no company logos, tinted windows. It had circled the block twice now, slowing each time it passed the clinic. The driver wore sunglasses despite the overcast sky. "Marco." Clara kept her voice calm. "Blue van. Northeast corner. It's been around 3 times." Marco's hand went to his phone immediately. "I see it. Running the plates now." The van parked across the street, engines still running. "Dr. Kim," Clara said, her voice steady but urgent. "I need you to take Matteo to the back room."
Now.
"What's happening?" "Just a precaution. Please." Dr. Kim looked at Marco, who nodded sharply. She took Matteo's hand. "Come on, buddy. Let's try the parallel bars in the other room." "But Clara." "I'll be right there, I promise." "Go with Dr. Kim." The moment they left, 2 men exited the van. Both wore jackets too heavy for the weather. Both walked with purpose toward the clinic entrance. "We've got company," Marco said into his phone. 2 hostiles approaching. "Send backup now." The clinic's front door opened. Marco moved to intercept, his hand inside his jacket. Clara's heart hammered. "Clinic's closed for private session," Marco said firmly. "We have an appointment." The first man's smile didn't reach his eyes. "No, you don't." The second man's hand moved toward his waistband. Marco was faster, drawing his weapon. "Don't." Everything happened at once. The back door of the clinic burst open. 2 more men rushed in from the alley entrance, heading straight for the therapy rooms. Clara saw Matteo's terrified face through the doorway. She moved on pure instinct. Clara sprinted toward the back room, putting herself between the men and Matteo. Dr. Kim had already pushed Matteo behind a piece of equipment, her body shielding him. "Get back," Clara shouted. The first man grabbed her arm, trying to shove her aside. Clara did something she'd learned working rough crowds at the diner. She stomped hard on his instep and drove her elbow into his solar plexus. He wheezed and stumbled. The second man was bigger, faster. He pushed past her, reaching for Matteo.
No.
Clara threw herself at him, clinging to his arm, using her full weight to slow him down. "Run, Matteo."
Run.
A fist connected with her ribs. Pain exploded through her side. She gasped but didn't let go, her fingers locked around the man's jacket. "Stupid bitch," he snarled, shoving her hard into the wall. Clara's head cracked against plaster. Her vision blurred. But she could see Matteo scrambling toward the corner, Dr. Kim dragging him behind a treatment table. The man pulled a gun. Clara's blood turned to ice. Without thinking, she launched herself at him again, grabbing his gun hand, forcing it upward. The weapon discharged into the ceiling. Plaster rained down. Clara. Mateo's scream cut through the chaos. Then Marco was there, tackling the gunman from behind. The weapon clattered across the floor. More of Lorenzo's men burst through both entrances, weapons drawn, shouting commands.
Down.
Everyone down.
Now.
The attackers were subdued in seconds, professional, efficient, brutal. One tried to run and was slammed face-first into the floor. Another raised his weapon, and Marco shot him in the shoulder without hesitation. Clara slid down the wall, her legs giving out. Her ribs screamed. Her head throbbed. But Mateo was safe. Clara. Mateo tried to run to her, but Dr. Kim held him back. I'm okay, Clara managed, though blood trickled from her temple.
I'm okay, Budgie.
Marco was on his phone. Situation contained. 2 suspects down. 2 in custody. We need medical and cleanup. And get Mr. DeLuca here now. Clara pressed her hand to her ribs and winced. Definitely bruised, maybe cracked. Her head felt like it was splitting open. But when she looked at Mateo, huddled behind the table with wide, terrified eyes, all she felt was relief. The ambulance arrived before Lorenzo did. Paramedics checked Clara's injuries, bruised ribs, minor concussion, cuts from the plaster. They wanted to take her to the hospital.
No.
I'm not leaving him. Ma'am, you need. I said no. Then Lorenzo arrived, and Clara had never seen him like this. He came through the door like a storm, controlled on the surface, but violence simmering just underneath. His eyes swept the scene, his men holding suspects, Marco's bloodied knuckles, Clara sitting against the wall with a paramedic treating her head, and Mateo, pale and shaking in Dr. Kim's arms.
Papa.
Mateo broke free and ran to his father. Lorenzo caught him, holding him tight, his eyes closed. You're safe. You're safe, Lorenzo's voice was raw. Then he looked at Clara. He knelt beside her, his hand gentle on her shoulder. What happened? They came for Mateo. The schedule was leaked. Clara's voice was steady despite the pain. Sonia. It had to be Sonia. Lorenzo's expression went from concern to something far darker. Marco, status. 4 attackers. 2 in custody, 1 wounded, 1 fled. Caruso's men. We're sure of it. We got there in time, because Miss Martinez raised the alarm. Lorenzo's jaw clenched. He looked at Clara, really looked at her. The blood on her face, the way she held her ribs, the protective fury still burning in her eyes. You could have been killed. So could Mateo. Clara. I promised him I'd keep him safe. That's what I did. Lorenzo's hand tightened on her shoulder. For a moment, the mask cracked completely, and she saw fear, rage, and something that looked like awe. Take her to the estate, Lorenzo said to Marco. Private doctor, full security detail. No hospitals, he stood, his voice dropping to something cold and lethal. And bring me Sonia Ramirez.
Now.
As they helped Clara to her feet, she caught Lorenzo's expression. He was making calls, his voice quiet but deadly. Orders being given. Plans being made. This wasn't a crime boss protecting his assets. This was a father whose child had been threatened, and someone was going to pay. Mateo grabbed Clara's hand as they walked to the SUV. You saved me. Clara squeezed his hand gently. Always, kiddo. That's what family does. Behind them, Lorenzo watched. And for the first time in 6 years, he let himself feel the full weight of what was at stake. Not just his son's safety, but the woman who'd thrown herself into danger without hesitation to protect him. Clara woke to sunlight streaming through her bedroom windows and the dull ache of bruised ribs. The private doctor had prescribed rest, painkillers, and strict orders not to move for 24 hours. She'd made it 6. Mateo was having breakfast downstairs, and she needed to see him, needed to confirm with her own eyes that he was okay. She made it halfway down the hallway before Lorenzo appeared, blocking her path. What are you doing out of bed? Checking on Mateo. He's fine. Marco is with him. You need rest. I've rested enough. Clara tried to move past him, but Lorenzo's hand on her arm stopped her, gentle but firm. Clara, you have a concussion and cracked ribs, the doctor said. I know what the doctor said, but Matteo needs to see I'm okay, or he'll worry. Lorenzo studied her face, then sighed. 5 minutes. Then back to bed. They walked together to the breakfast nook. Matteo's face lit up when he saw her. Clara, you're awake. Hey, kiddo. How are you feeling? Better now. Matteo's eyes were red-rimmed, like he'd been crying. I had bad dreams. Clara sat carefully beside him, ignoring the pain in her ribs. About yesterday? He nodded. About you getting hurt. Because of me. Matteo, look at me. Clara waited until he met her eyes. Nothing that happened yesterday was your fault. Those men made bad choices. You didn't. But if I wasn't there, if you weren't there, I wouldn't have a reason to be brave. Clara smiled. You make me braver, kiddo, not weaker. Lorenzo watched this exchange from the doorway, his expression unreadable. After breakfast, he found her in the garden. She was sitting on a bench, breathing carefully, watching birds in the fountain. You should be resting.
I'm sitting.
That's basically resting. Lorenzo sat beside her, maintaining a careful distance. For a long moment neither spoke. We have Sonia, he finally said. Clara's head snapped toward him. When my men found her last night, she was trying to leave the city. His voice was flat, controlled. She's been questioned, and she confirmed everything. She was working for Vincent Caruso. He paid her to leak information, Matteo's schedules, security routines, the layout of the house. The attack yesterday was planned using details she provided. Clara felt sick. She put Matteo in danger for money. It was more than money. Lorenzo's jaw tightened. Caruso promised to ruin me. Sonia wanted revenge for being fired. So she gave him the tools to make me look weak, a Don who couldn't even protect his own son. What happens to her now? Lorenzo was quiet for a long moment. That depends on her cooperation with the authorities.
My lawyers are working with the FBI.
Caruso's operation has been under investigation for months. Sonia's testimony could be valuable. You're turning her in? Not. Clara trailed off, unsure how to finish. Not killing her? Lorenzo's smile was bitter. I'm not a murderer, Clara. I'm many things, but not that. Sonia will face justice, legal justice. As will Caruso, if we can connect him directly to the attack. Clara absorbed this. Everything she'd been told about Lorenzo De Luca, about who he was, suddenly felt more complicated. There's something else, Lorenzo said quietly. Sonia admitted she was intentionally neglecting Matteo. Withholding food wasn't just about control, it was sabotage. She wanted him to fail, to regress, to make me look like an incompetent father. She fed information to my rivals about his condition, painted him as my weakness. The words hit Clara like a punch. She was hurting him on purpose. For 3 years, Lorenzo's voice cracked slightly. And I didn't see it. I trusted her with my son, and she was slowly destroying him. Lorenzo, you couldn't have known. I should have known. He turned to face her fully. I was so focused on keeping him hidden, keeping him safe from external threats, that I missed the threat inside my own house. I built walls so high that even Matteo couldn't see over them. I thought isolation meant protection. You were trying to keep him safe. I was keeping him lonely. Lorenzo's dark eyes were raw with emotion. Until you just walked in. You didn't ask permission. You didn't follow protocols. You just saw a hungry child and fed him soup. Clara's throat tightened. It was just soup. It was everything. Lorenzo's voice was barely above a whisper. You gave him something I'd forgotten how to give, normalcy. Kindness, without conditions. The chance to just be a kid. The air between them felt charged, heavy with unspoken things. Clara, I need to tell you something. Lorenzo's usual control was cracking. When I saw you at that clinic, bleeding, hurt because you threw yourself in front of my son, he stopped, struggling with words. I've spent 6 years making sure I never cared about anyone beyond Matteo. Caring means vulnerability. It means weakness. It means being human. In my world, being human gets you killed. Then maybe your world needs to change. Lorenzo looked at her, really looked at her, and Clara saw everything he was trying not to say. The fear, the longing, the impossible hope that maybe, just maybe, there was room in his fortress for something other than survival. You terrify me, he admitted quietly. Not because of who you are, but because of what you make me feel. What you make me want. Clara's breath caught. Lorenzo. You make me want to believe that goodness exists. That my son can have a normal life. That I can be more than what I've become. His hand moved toward hers, stopping just short of touching. You walked into my life with a bowl of soup and broke every rule I'd built to keep myself safe. Maybe those rules needed breaking. Lorenzo's eyes held hers, and for the first time, she saw not the crime boss or the protective father, but just a man, scared, lonely, desperately trying to do right by the people he loved. Thank you, he said softly, for saving my son, for staying when anyone sensible would run, for being exactly what we needed, even when we didn't know we needed it. Clara's hand closed the distance, her fingers brushing his. Thank you for letting me stay. They sat in the garden as morning turned to afternoon, not quite touching but not quite separate either. The walls Lorenzo had built so carefully were crumbling, and for the first time, he wasn't rushing to rebuild them. Inside, through the window, Matteo watched his father and Clara sitting together. He smiled. Things were changing. Scary things, complicated things. But also good things. His father was laughing, actually laughing, at something Clara said. And Matteo thought maybe, just maybe, they were becoming the family he'd always wanted. 2 days after the attack, Lorenzo called a meeting with the entire household staff. Clara stood beside him in the main hall, her ribs still taped, a fading bruise on her temple. Every member of the household staff was assembled, housekeepers, kitchen staff, groundskeepers, security. Even Mrs. Chun, her expression carefully neutral. Effective immediately, Lorenzo announced, his voice carrying authority, Clara Martinez is the head of Matteo's personal care team. All decisions regarding my son's schedule, activities, medical appointments, and daily routine go through her.
No exceptions.
Mrs. Chen's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. Miss Martinez has proven her dedication beyond question. She's earned not just my trust, but my son's trust. That makes her family. Lorenzo's eyes swept the room. Anyone who has a problem with this arrangement is free to submit their resignation. Otherwise, you will treat her with the respect this position deserves. The silence was absolute. Are we clear? A chorus of yes, sir, echoed through the hall. After the meeting, Mrs. Chen approached Clara. For a moment, Clara braced for another confrontation. Instead, the older woman extended her hand. I was wrong about you, Mrs. Chen said quietly. I thought you were temporary. Someone playing a role. But you threw yourself in front of danger for that boy without hesitation. She paused. That's not acting. That's family. Clara shook her hand, surprised by the warmth in the gesture. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I'm a terrible person to work for when I'm not undermining you. Mrs. Chen's smile was slight but genuine. But I'll do my job properly now. You focus on Matteo. I'll handle the rest. Over the next 2 days, the household transformed. Clara established new routines, breakfast in the garden when weather permitted, afternoon reading time in the library, evening walks around the estate grounds. Matteo thrived under the structure that felt like freedom rather than restriction. His physical improvements were remarkable. Dr. Kim reported increased strength and flexibility. His appetite was healthy. His sleep improved. But more than that, he was happy. Clara found him one afternoon in the library, writing furiously in a notebook. What are you working on? My dragon story. I'm on chapter 3. Matteo looked up, beaming. Want to hear it. Always. As he read, his voice strong and confident, Clara felt something settle in her chest. Purpose. Belonging. Home. That evening, Lorenzo requested a private dinner, just the 3 of them. No staff hovering, no formality. Clara made grilled cheese for Mateo and pasta for the adults. They ate in the breakfast nook, the one room in the massive estate that actually felt warm. "Papa, guess what?" Mateo said through a mouthful of sandwich. "I walked the whole garden path today, without stopping. Twice." "That's incredible, son." Lorenzo's pride was evident. "I'm very proud of you." Clara said, "I'm getting stronger every day." Clara's right. They talked about books, about Mateo's story, about the new puppy Alberto's daughter had adopted. Normal things. Family things. The kind of dinner most people took for granted, but Lorenzo had forgotten was possible. After Mateo went to bed, Clara and Lorenzo lingered in the garden. Alberto joined them, carrying 3 glasses and a bottle of wine. "To surviving another week in the De Luca household," Alberto said, pouring. "Which is more eventful than most people's entire lives." Clara laughed, accepting a glass. "Is it always like this?" "No," Alberto said seriously. "It's never been like this. Usually it's just business. Meetings, threats, strategy. This," he gestured at the house, where Mateo's bedroom light glowed warmly. "This is new." Lorenzo was watching that window, his expression softer than Clara had ever seen it. "She's changing everything," Alberto said quietly to Lorenzo, low enough that Clara almost missed it. Lorenzo didn't respond immediately. He just watched the light where his son slept, safe and happy, probably dreaming about dragons and knights who became friends. "She already has," Lorenzo finally replied. The 3 of them sat in comfortable silence as the Chicago skyline glittered in the distance. Clara thought about the woman she'd been 10 days ago, stressed, broke, uncertain. That woman wouldn't recognize her life now. But she wouldn't trade it for anything. "Clara?" Mateo's voice called from his window. "Can you come read with me?" "Be right there." Clara set down her glass and stood, wincing slightly at her ribs. Lorenzo stood too. "I'll come with you, if that's okay." "Of course." They walked inside together, Lorenzo's hand briefly touching the small of her back, a gesture so natural it seemed unconscious. In Mateo's room, they settled on either side of his bed while he read from his dragon story. Mateo's voice filled the room, animated and joyful. Lorenzo listened with complete attention, his hand resting near Clara's on the bedspread. Not quite touching, but close enough to feel the warmth. When Mateo finally fell asleep, Clara and Lorenzo stood in the doorway, watching him breathe peacefully. "Thank you," Lorenzo whispered.
For all of this.
"You don't have to keep thanking me." "Yes, I do." He looked at her, and Clara saw everything he couldn't quite say yet. The walls hadn't completely fallen, but they were crumbling. "You gave me my son back. You gave me..." He stopped, but Clara understood.
Hope.
Family. A reason to be more than just survival. "We're just getting started," Clara said softly. Lorenzo's hand found hers in the darkness, fingers intertwining. "I know." They stood together in the quiet house, watching over the boy who'd brought them together. Outside, Chicago buzzed with its usual chaos, deals being made, threats being planned, the complicated dance of power and danger that defined Lorenzo's world. But here, in this moment, there was only peace. A father learning to be present, a son learning to thrive, and a woman who'd walked into their lives with nothing but kindness and changed everything. The future was uncertain, dangerous, even. But for the first time in years, it also held promise. And that was enough.